Hi, my name is Julie Casey and I'm an educational psychologist in Torfaen in South Wales, and I have a particular interest in the health and wellbeing area of learning and experience. This is the fourth collection of videos in a series of 6 collections altogether, and what we're trying to do in each of these collections is to share some practical ideas and activities from the SEAL Cymru materials. So SEAL stands for social and emotional aspects of learning, from practitioners and from any other sources we can find, mainly the internet and YouTube, of course. So we're going to look at how they can help you to deliver the health and wellbeing area of learning and experience, but also to implement the whole school approach statutory framework to health and wellbeing. All of the activities we're going to look at in this little collection are based on Good to Be Me, which is the SEAL theme aimed at primary schools, and Learning About Me, which is the equivalent for secondary schools. You can download all of these from the website on the slide here, so it's www.sealcommunity.org, and you'll see it's completely free to download all the materials that we're going to be talking about. So this theme, what's in this theme? There are 3 basic areas that we're going to be looking at in this collection in the theme of Good to Be Me, and that is knowing. The first one is knowing and valuing myself. So this is how can we support children in developing their ability to really get to know themselves, but more important than that, to accept that they really are okay, even if they feel different from their peers, or there are things about themselves that they dislike or they feel uncomfortable with and would like to change, that it's okay to be there, warts and all. The second focus is managing feelings, with a focus on dealing with stress and anxiety. And the third focus area is developing the skills of assertiveness. So the skills and also practicing those skills, in particular in the context of peer pressure in upper primary and also throughout secondary. It's really important, I think, when we're thinking about these topics, to remember that this is a universal. All of the activities we're talking about here are intended for universal use for all young people across the age ranges, from nursery right through up to Key Stage 4. But for many of our students who have experienced a lot of ACEs, who have perhaps had trauma in their lives or attachment issues, they're actually going to need more than this. So this would be seen as the kind of base level intervention on a graduated provision, and they're likely to need targeted and bespoke, perhaps even individual support as well as this. So that's important to bear in mind. But this level, at the level we're talking at the moment, it's a universal provision that we're looking at. And our focus today is the whole school tools that are available to everybody, again, completely free. And we've looked in other videos at book lists that are linked to each topic. And we're also just going to have a look at some of the other resources that support the development of an understanding of emotions and managing emotions. So there's feeling fans, emotional barometer, wrongly named, it turns out, posters, lists of words and so on, and the books that we've already talked about, and even a list of music compositions which can accompany different moods. The photocards are excellent. There are over 150. There's a set for England, there's also a set for Wales, and they can be printed or displayed, laminated and so on, and they show a whole range of different feelings and scenarios to promote discussion. Now, with pictures, sometimes we can get a little bit stuck. It's like, oh, how do you think this person's feeling? Oh, surprised. Yes, well done. This resource is particularly good because on the back of each of the photocards, there are a number of questions that you can use to explore with the young people, when they felt like this, or how they know the feeling is, what they think it is, and so on. So there's quite a lot that can be done with these photocards. So I think, as with all of the resources, the whole school resources, you know, we don't just need to use these in specific health and wellbeing or SEL lessons. They can be used across the curriculum. They can be used at any point during the school day, perhaps when something's happened with a group or with an individual, or perhaps in a lesson, English or drama. Often very useful to have to hand. The emotional barometer, wrongly named, as I think I mentioned, it's actually a sort of circular thermometer, I'm told. But it's hugely versatile, and it can really help a lot with children learning about what it is that actually affects their emotions. So the idea is that they cut this out, this template here, and there's a list of words, or children can make their own lists of words, and they kind of Velcro that. So they can have these on display, they can colour them in, laminate them and so on, and have them on display. And then they choose the feeling word and say whether they're feeling it a lot, a little bit, or too much when it begins to get a little bit out of hand. It's also quite handy. I've been in classrooms where the teacher has actually had a large one on the front of their desk to show how they're feeling. And absolutely extraordinary how accurate children already are at knowing, of course, how their teacher is feeling and what they can get away with at particular times. So what sort of things can this support with? Well, some of the users are checking in regularly with the children's emotional landscape. So what's their body doing? How's their body feeling inside and out? What's their face showing? What do they want to do? What words would they use to describe it? They can use it for describing the intensity of a feeling and perhaps putting words to different degrees of irritation, crossness, anger, rage, and so on, for whatever word they're focusing on. So very useful for extending that emotional vocabulary. I think for me, the most important thing is it allows children to make this absolutely crucial connection between their feeling and what's happened just before. Okay, so what is it that causes their feeling or their feeling to change? So if someone says something kind to you, you might notice that your emotional barometer changes. You might be feeling contented and pleasant, and that might increase when somebody says something kind. If you get something right in class, or the opposite end of the spectrum, if somebody's unkind to you, something unexpected happens, or somebody barges past your desk and leaves you feeling a little bit cross. All of those things can change the feeling and the intensity of that feeling, which you can then show physically through the emotional barometer. So it's really important for children to make those links, and this is a really good way of doing it. The feelings fans, I absolutely love these. They're really good for children who perhaps struggle with language, for younger children, or for children who just don't feel confident enough to say how they're feeling. It gives them a way to show the teacher or an adult how they're feeling. For individuals who struggle particularly, they can be very easily personalised. So this is a young boy who is demonstrating all the different feelings that he can feel, and thoroughly enjoyed doing it, as you can probably tell. And he was a little boy who found things quite difficult and would hit out quite a lot in class when he was young. And when he made the fan with his teacher, he actually found that instead of hitting out, he'd run to his drawer, get the fan out and wave it at his teacher instead of hitting out, which was a massive step forward. So, and thanks for the permission to share that with everybody. Huge progress through the feelings fan, so that's one use. There are feeling detectives, trying to work out both what the child themselves is feeling, but also there's posters that look at what other people are feeling as well. And again, these can be used not just in SEL sessions or health and wellbeing sessions, but across the curriculum in English, or when there's an incident in school and somebody's upset or whatever, using them all the time. No point having posters up on the wall if they're not referred to on a regular basis. This is from Year 8. It's one of the activities, but I think, again, it's quite a useful tool, particularly for secondary students, perhaps some upper primary as well. But, you know, really looking at those kind of key emotions and what words there are, perhaps putting them in order. There's all sorts of activities that you can think of to do with those, and extending the young people's vocabulary. Book lists we've talked about previously. There are book lists for all of the different themes, and they are organised by age range, as you can see there, and there's music for different moods. The book lists, of course, are a little out of date, although, you know, classics don't really go out of date. But if you search for book lists on the website, then you will find updated lists, and we're going to look at some of those later on in this collection. In terms of the links to the Welsh context, the overall theme, two of the key themes identified in the whole school approach document involve areas that really depend on the young person's ability and confidence in saying what they feel and what they want. So efficacy, feeling that you can make a difference, and having your voice heard. You've got to be able to know what you feel and feel confident and have the skills to say it. So that links very closely to this, the skills that are developed through this theme in this collection. So the same point applies to the healthy schools draft criteria there. The young people need to be able to get their points across without being passive or aggressive. So really important to learn those skills of assertiveness, and to the importance, Estin's Happy and Healthy report from 2019. There's a recommendation there, which is to take better account of pupils' views. We have to be able to get those views before we can take account of them. We'll be looking at the specific area of learning and experience and the links to the progression steps and the what matters statements in relation to each of the main areas. If you've watched the previous videos, you'll know that each theme, each Seal Cymru theme, offers the same basic structure. So when you download the Seal resources, you'll see that there's booklets for different ages. So in Wales, those are foundation phase, which is blue, years 3 and 4 yellow, and green for year 5 and 6. In England, they're the same, but the English version, the red set covers nursery and reception, and the blue covers year 1 and 2. So the same learning outcomes are covered at each stage, differentiated obviously, because it's not enough to learn something once with health and well-being and with the skills of social and emotional learning. We have to revisit the same topic. What's appropriate at year 2 certainly isn't appropriate at year 9 or even probably year 3. So we revisit in what we tend to call a spiral curriculum. Within each booklet, there are different sorts of activities, some whole school and some classroom based. So we have the whole school assembly and the whole school tools, obviously, which we've already talked about. The whole school focus for noticing and rewarding, that's really important. You can see the poster there. This can be a focus for the whole school. So everybody in the school, all adults and children, are looking out for people who put into practice the skills that they're learning through these this particular theme. So we try and catch the children being good, if you like, catch the children putting these skills into practice. And very often schools will celebrate or reward these skills in the Friday assembly, celebration assembly or similar. In terms of explicit class sessions, we have circle games, activities, rounds, warm-up, starters, and so on. And then we have what they call the in the SEAL materials, they call the learning opportunities, so the kind of lesson activities really to achieve the learning outcomes that are listed at the beginning of each of the booklets. Now, we do know, and forgive me if you've heard me say this so many times, but it is really important to remember what I call the 20/80 rule. 20% of the learning will happen in explicit sessions where we focus on SEL or health and wellbeing outcomes explicitly, but 80% of the learning is going to come through the reinforcement through staff modelling, through skills being drawn attention to during the school day, through using the skills in maths, in PE, in drama, in Welsh, and so on. Really, really important that we remember that, and what we will do in these sessions and what the booklets do is to include a lot of these ongoing activities or application of the learning. So ways to keep the learning alive, and we'll be looking at those from the original materials, but also those that teachers have developed since the material. So we're kind of refreshing the ideas from the original materials as time has gone on. So we're going to look now at each of the focus areas in this collection in turn. Before we do that, there's an activity here which we thought it would be useful for you to undertake if you have time, the pause for reflection and application. If you're in a group, you might like to consider sharing practice on how you actually store and categorise your resources for SEL. There's so much out there, as you'll know, and you'll see certainly in these presentations. And you know, how can we actually store these electronically and in hard copy effectively and efficiently, so the whole school community can access them? And that can be something you could share with a group. If you are on your own, you know, again, having a think about how your setting organises these resources, but also maybe taking an hour to look at the resources that are discussed above on the website and have a think about how you could organise them appropriately to the settings curriculum so they're accessible to everybody.